I am a known anti-horror watcher.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Crushing it. That in and of itself is a crazy statement.
Winning solves everything. Happy Halloween, everybody. This is Terrin Waack, and welcome to the Friday Five. I am joined, per usual, by Tori McElhaney. Say happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
We are obviously missing Will McFadden today because he announced this on Twitter, so I think I can do so too.
Yeah.
He's a baby daddy of two.
A baby daddy of two.
He has two children.
2 boys.
A little boy,
boys.
Cooper, was born.
Yeah.
Was it last week?
It was on Sunday.
It was on Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh, game day.
Yeah,
game day, baby.
I actually feel bad because I definitely broke the news. If you listen to our Final Whistle podcast, I definitely off the top was like, Will's not here because his wife had a baby. And I felt horrible because I was like, I didn't even let him announce his own child's birth.
That's a tough one to break.
I know.
It's kind of scary. You know what else is scary?
Halloween.
Yes, but I was going to say the question of the day. Question of the week.
Okay.
So Social's asking the players, what's the scariest movie you've seen?
Okay. I am a known anti-horror watcher. I don't like horror movies. I don't like scary movies. If I'm gonna pay to watch something, I want to feel good about it. I don't want to pay to be sad, and I don't want to pay to be scared unless I'm going to a haunted house. I don't care for that stuff. That being said, the first horror movie that I ever saw, and it's burned into my brain, is The Unborn.
I haven't seen it.
And I watched it on a softball trip. We were on a charter bus, and we were going to our state championship tournament. And I think I was 15 at the time, and we watched it on the way there. And so I had no choice. I was held captive in this bus watching The Unborn, and I hated every moment of it. And I don't think I've been the same since.
I'm a lot like you. I can't do scary movies.
Yeah.
The parody scary movies scare me.
Yeah. Which is that in and of itself is a crazy statement. Well, I legit just watched The Shining for the first time. I think I said this on the podcast, but I watched The Shining for the first time 2 weeks ago with my boyfriend because he was like, I can't believe you haven't seen The Shining. And I was like, I'm sorry. My bad. Actually, it was a pretty interesting movie. Weird, but interesting.
I would say the scariest movie I've watched is Nightmare on Elm Street just because of all the dream implications. I watched it, I think, in 8th grade, and I did sleep in my parents' bed all week at that age.
That's so sad, Terrin.
Yeah, so we're going to move on.
Yeah.
That was the question of the day. You can see what all the Falcons players answered to said question on the Falcons TikTok. Be sure to go look at it.
I'm sure they will have better answers than what we did.
They might not be as scared as us. They might not be chickens.
Or they may have seen more stuff.
Yeah. Anyways. Ooh. Kind of scary. Not that scary. But the Falcons' run game.
Oh, what a transition.
I know. Not the normal host. We're working on it.
She's like, transitions aren't my thing.
So, yes. I want to introduce our first topic with this post-game quote from Bijan Robinson. He said, "Consistency has been the biggest thing for us as a team, and that's what needs to be preached." It's obvious that the run game has been the most inconsistent aspect of especially the Falcons' offense.
Yeah.
I wrote about it in my Wednesday story. Be sure to go check it out. But the Falcons' rushing offense was ranked first in the NFL just 3 weeks ago, averaging 151 yards per game. It dropped to 4th with a 136 average the next week, and it's now 11th with a 123-yard average. That's a big drop within 3 weeks. You went from 1st to 11th. The Falcons are 3-4. It averaged 185 rushing yards in the 3 wins and only 77 rushing yards in the 4 losses. Mm-hmm. When you think about how Raheem Morris said the run game is the Falcons' lifeline, what happens when that lifeline cuts out?
I mean, it essentially is they don't win games. I think that has been evident from week 1. You look back at that week 1 game when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers kind of laid the blueprint for taking away the run, and it has come up time and time again. And there is a direct line of correlation between the Falcons not being able to run the ball and ultimately losing the game. And I think the big question is why is this happening? What is the thing that is keeping this team that has stated time and time again that running the ball outside zone is their bread and butter, is what they want to do. Raheem Morris called it the lifeline of this team. Why is that right now not working for this team? Because this isn't just the Dolphins took the run away. No, it is come up in every single loss. Case in point, if you just look at Bijan Robinson's numbers as a microcosm of this issue and the inconsistencies and the up and down nature of it, so the Falcons are 3-4 right now. In the 3 wins, he averages 19 carries, roughly 130 rushing yards, a 6.6 yards per carry average. In the 4 losses, it is significantly lower. We're talking about 12 carries, 40 rushing yards, a 3.3 yards per carry average. And obviously this isn't all on Bijan. I would say it's not on Bijan Robinson. And I use his numbers as an illustration of kind of where the Falcons are in a win versus a loss. And I think this is something that, as I stated, it's like this is something that the Falcons has had problems in every single loss that they've had. And I also think it's very obvious that there is a blueprint for teams, for defenses, whether they are the best run-stopping team in the league or the close to the bottom, i.e. the 31st run defense team in the Miami Dolphins. Mike McDaniel said post-game on Sunday that the Miami Dolphins defense was trying to keep the Falcons one-dimensional. That was their priority, regardless of who the quarterback was. Based on the offense that the Falcons have, taking the run game means that you serve yourself the best chance available to win the game. And so the reason this is happening, that we talked to Zach Robinson about this week, is that there is an identification problem that is occurring where the offensive line, and I would say tight ends probably as well, are not picking up the right guys in their assignments. They're not putting body to body with the defender that they're supposed to block. And what's really frustrating about that is the fact that Zach Robinson, while saying all this, is also saying we've actually seen defensive looks that are simpler.
That spoke volumes.
Than what we kind of expected. So it's like an execution thing. So it's kind of like calling out the offensive line and the tight ends without specifically calling them out by name. But that's exactly what he's saying. He's like, and I think the quote that Chris Lindstrom said in the locker room on Wednesday also spoke volumes as well about that.
He said deservingly so. And I can't remember the exact quote.
It was something along the lines of like, everything, all of the looks Miami gave the Falcons, Chris Lindstrom said, I knew it was coming.
Yes,
I knew what it was. I could draw it up. And yet the Falcons were still struggling to run the ball. Like that is a major red flag to me when you have your all-pro right guard being like, yeah, we knew exactly what they were doing. We knew exactly what they were trying to take away. And yet they were still able to do that.
Yeah, and he said it himself too. Everything starts up front. If the front isn't able to do its job, nobody else can either, really. So it's definitely a pain point when it comes to the Falcons offense right now. And speaking of pain...
Nice. Good transition.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just going to call out every time you have a good transition and be like, yeah, Terrin.
Speaking of pain, let's talk about the injuries.
Yeah.
It's a big sigh because there aren't really any firm updates.
Right, yeah.
Raheem Morris on Wednesday gave his update about the list of players who are injured, and it was kind of basically they're all day-to-day.
Right.
All of them.
All of them.
And that includes...
all day-to-day.
That includes, here's the list of limited players.
Yep.
Darnell Mooney, Jesse Bates, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Michael Penix, Jalen Walker, Billy Bowman.
Yep.
All day-to-day. Those who are not day-to-day, at least given the most recent injury report, are Leonard Floyd, Casey Washington, and Zach Harrison.
Well, I wouldn't say they're not day-to-day. I would just say that they didn't participate in Wednesday's practice.
True. I will be curious what Thursday's injury report says.
Right.
Thank you for that clarification.
Right. 'Cause
we
he
are
did
recording
say-
this before Thursday's injury report.
Exactly, because Raheem Morris did lump Zach Harrison into that day-to-day category, and he was not active on Wednesday.
It did surprise me that he didn't participate in practice when everyone else he did lump together did. But again, he could practice Thursday and Friday.
Right.
The point is they're all waiting until Friday, Saturday to make these decisions just like they did last week. I mean, you saw Drake London after last Friday didn't have a game status, but then it was on Saturday that he was listed as questionable and then ultimately did not play.
Yeah.
So you never really know until game day itself. Another person I want to throw into this mix, given the conversation we just had about the run game, is Storm Norton, because He was designated to return from injured reserve last Wednesday.
Yeah.
So he's in week 2 of his 3-week window to either be activated to the 53-man roster or put on season-ending injured reserve. And it's an ankle injury, but like he's been a full participant since he's returned to at least practice,
right,
not to playing. I'll be curious if that changes this week. But I guess like just thinking about this list, what does that mean for week 9, the Falcons going to New England?
It actually goes back to something that I think that we spoke about when the Falcons were getting ready to go out to the West Coast to face the 49ers, and that like you could see a lot of different variations of a team with the 49ers based on who they were going to get back at that point in time. Because at the time it was like, okay, Brock Purdy was returning to the fold. George Kittle was returning. You can maybe get a couple receivers back. Like there were some things that would fundamentally change kind of the caliber of player that you were facing. And I think that's kind of where the Falcons are right now, particularly with Drake London, with Kyle Pitts, with Michael Penix, Jalen Walker, Billy Bowman Jr. Like there are a lot of names on this injury report this week who a majority of which did not play on Sunday. That changes the way that I think a team has to prepare for the Falcons if you are the New England Patriots. And let's just use Michael Penix Jr. as the case study for this. I mean, he did not play on Sunday. We spoke to him on Wednesday, and he kind of said, he was like, it didn't feel right for me to go out there on Sunday and not be 100%. He was like, my teammates didn't deserve for me to be any less than 100%, and that's why ultimately he was held out with that knee issue, the bone bruise in his knee. And but I do expect that I have the expectation, because this is everything that Raheem Morris, Zach Robinson, Michael Penix himself said, is like the expectation is that he plays this Sunday up at Gillette against the Patriots. And he even said this week, and Raheem Morris said as well, is like last week you saw as the week went on, Kirk Cousins taking more and more reps with the first team. That's not necessarily the case this week, where Raheem Morris said that he fully expects it to be more Michael with the first team. Michael Penix said in his press conference was just like, yeah, I'm trending in the right direction, in step, feeling good, not an issue. So I think that's ultimately where we are right now as we're recording this on Thursday.
Yes, so this is Thursday. Make sure you're keeping up with AtlantaFalcons.com to be sure you're seeing the latest injury report. There will be one Thursday afternoon, which will already be out as you hear this. There will be one Friday afternoon that includes the game status, and then there won't be one on Saturday, but there will be the inactives on Sunday, 90 minutes prior to the 1 p.m. kickoff.
Yep.
Somebody who for sure will not be playing against the Patriots is Divine Deablo.
Right.
Was that a good one?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Crushing it.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week on Final Whistle, and we're going to talk about it now because he, both literally and figuratively, is such a big character on this defense when healthy. And he wasn't last week, and you saw J.D. Bertrand start in Divine Deablo's place. He played 68 of the Falcons' 69 defensive snaps, which is 99%. He made 9 tackles and broke up a pass. For comparison, other starter, Caden Ellis, made 12 tackles, 2 of which were for a loss, and also broke up a pass. When Jeff Ulbrich, before I get into that, you and I spoke post-game on Final Whistle where we were like, where was that by committee approach?
Right, because we only really saw it very sparingly, where you had Ronnie Harrison come in as a kind of like a third linebacker, big safety hybrid kind of look, but it only happened a handful of times.
Ronnie Harrison played 15 defensive snaps, 22%, and he made 2 tackles.
Yeah, so it wasn't like this was being deployed at a significant rate, especially knowing how often the Miami offense was on the field.
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting a little bit more maybe from potentially DeMarco Helms. Yes. I was expecting maybe a little bit more from like a Josh Woods or a D'Angelo Malone, but none of those things ever truly manifested. And I think it was even Raheem Morris who said on Monday that they actually ended up doing less by committee stuff than what they ultimately maybe even thought they were going to.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Ulbrich said they did a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we all expected more, as you said, as Raheem Morris said. But here's the turning point or twist in this whole thing. Ulbrich said we'll do the same thing this game. What does that mean for the Falcons' defense against the Patriots, who are riding a 5-game winning streak with Drake May at the helm?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm concerned about that spot because I think that it was very obvious to me that this defense does not operate in the same capacity without Divine Deablo as it did with him. And I think that's a credit to who Divine Deablo turned out to be for this defense and all the different things that you have him do and the role he plays in this as a guy who has a DB background and can drop very well and cover guys very well while also rushing the passer. I mean, he did a little bit of everything for this defense, and that's hard to replicate with one singular person. I don't think, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I do not think that you can do that, but I do think that there has to be a level of going back to the drawing board a little bit because I don't know if just one-for-one slotting J.D. Bertrand in there for Divine Deablo truly moves the needle for me or for this defense. I think that there were some moments where I was like, you just miss Divine Deablo out there so much. And if a offense like Miami is sitting there looking at J.D. Bertrand and they're like, well, whoever his assignment is, we're going there.
Yeah.
Which is what it felt like. And I know Jeff Ulbrich was asked about that specifically, and he was like, I don't necessarily think that he was picked on or anything, but I think I couldn't watch that first quarter specifically and not just see that that to me is what it felt like Miami was doing. Drake May and this offense for the Patriots, they're rolling. I mean, they're doing some things that Drake May is, I think I was looking at Next Gen and it was he hasn't had a game yet where he hasn't thrown, I think, for over 200 yards, and he hasn't had a less than 100 QBR. He's doing things that are upper echelon type quarterback stuff. Yeah. And he's leading this offense well. He's seeing things so well right now. He's being protected well. I just I can't look at this matchup with this New England offense and think that if the Falcons do the exact same things that they did against Miami, that's a recipe for success. Because I don't believe that. I think they have to kind of do a little bit of this a little bit more of this by committee stuff and see what shakes out and what can work. Because I don't necessarily feel like it worked against Miami. And of course, that's not. I feel bad saying all this because it's this isn't J.D. Bertrand's fault.
No.
This isn't, he's just not the same type of player as Divine Deablo.
Right.
And the amount of reliance that you had on Divine Deablo, I think you can't expect J.D. Bertrand to be Divine Deablo. So it's how does this defense evolve without Divine until he comes back? That's going to be the biggest question mark I think I have for the unit going forward in the next month.
Right. And when you talk about a month, you do have a tough stretch of games on the schedule that
surprisingly so.
Maybe you didn't expect to be a tough stretch.
Yeah.
I remember when we were talking about the Falcons 2025 schedule back in May when it was first announced, we looked at the initial third of the schedule and we're like, woof, this is going to be tough. Because week one, you have the reigning NFC champions coming to Atlanta with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's always going to be a tough contest. Week two, you have the Vikings in Minnesota, which US Bank Stadium is, we've talked about it relentlessly, a crazy place to play in. And you have the Panthers who, fluky. And then you have...
They do a little bit of everything.
Fluky. We have the Commanders in week 4, followed by the bye, and then the Bills, and then the 49ers playoff teams right there. And you thought going into whatever week we're in now, 9. The Patriots, okay, haven't been all that great since the whole Bill Belichick era.
Right.
Then you have the Colts, who historically, as of late, haven't all that been that great either.
Right.
And alas, the Patriots are riding a 5-game winning streak into this game. And the Colts are arguably one of the best teams in the NFL right now. Not even arguably. They are one of the best teams in the NFL right now.
Yep.
How do you look at this game now compared to when you did before the season started?
Oh my gosh, it's night and day. It's not anywhere close. Point blank, the Patriots are a better team than what I think I gave them credit for being. And a lot of people gave them credit for being going into the 2025 season. I mean, I remember back when I did our schedule release show with Arch, and we were talking about, which sections of the schedule are you like pinpointing as like, okay, you can really make up some wins, you can grab some W's, make your record look pretty good heading into the back half of the season. And we literally picked this kind of 5-week time frame from like end of October to around Thanksgiving, where you are playing you were playing the Dolphins at home, you playing the Patriots on the road, the Colts in Germany, the Panthers at home, and then the Saints and Jets thereafter. Like that span of games going into this season were ones that on paper you wanted to say at the point in time of like being in May, June, July, August, it's like the Falcons roster, if it's healthy, WWW, maybe an L here and there, WWW. Yeah. Like you really felt going into this stretch of games, just from looking at it back in May, it was like, okay, that's a pretty, even though the Falcons have an early bye week, those are some games where you can pick up some wins, but like that's not at all how I feel anymore. To your point, the Patriots have rattled off 5 wins. They're playing very well. Drake May is playing very well, as I already stated. Like, and then the Colts are 7-1. Like, they're doing some really, really good things. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is one of the hardest running backs to face in the league right now. I mean, he's in early MVP conversations. Like, and then, of course, coming back home to play the Panthers, who you lost 30-0 at their place. And then there's the Saints, and then there's the Jets. Like, I don't feel as confident about this stretch of games as I once did. And this is also to say, too, that, like, the defense that this Patriots team have thrown out there takes away something, just to bring it full circle, it takes away something that the Falcons have said, again, is their bread and butter, running the game. This is a top 5 run defense in the New England Patriots. This is a very interesting stat, but the Patriots defense are the first team since 1950 to play the first 8 weeks of a season without allowing a running back to gain 50 yards in a game. That's a banana stat. And
bananas.
And then going from a team like the 31st run defense against Miami.
And you couldn't run the ball.
And you ran the ball for 45 yards.
And now you're going after a top 5.
Right. I think that this next game is, I think, a true indicator potentially of what the games thereafter could be for this team. If you don't figure it out now, what gives anyone confidence that you'll figure it out in the next month?
And that sets me up perfect for our final segment. And it's not going to really be a topic, but a question.
Okay.
What are your top 3 things you need to see the Falcons do to right this ship?
Yeah. So first off, you got to do it now. Like, I think that there has to be a sense of urgency to all of the things that we're talking about. You can't, there are 10 weeks left in this season, or 10 games left in this season. You have to go into it and be like, ultimately, if the Falcons want to be NFC South champions, they almost have to go like 7-3 the next 10 weeks. They need to beat Tampa Bay. They need to beat Carolina. They need to beat the Saints, and they need to hope that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, something happens and they falter. And so you can't look too far ahead if you're the Falcons, but to a certain extent, you got to fix what's been not working for you the last couple of weeks. And I think I have to start with what we talked about right off the jump about you need to execute your blocking identification better to limit free hitters. That's number one. Number 2 is something that I've been playing around with for the last couple of weeks, this thought process. There needs to be a better counterpunch when the run game is taken away. I know that Zach Robinson was specifically asked about this in his presser, and he said that he feels good about the counterpunches that he has within the scheme. But I guess my question is where have those been in the last 2 games? Because the run game was taken away from this team, and they couldn't do anything off of it. It felt like they couldn't do anything off of it.
We need a stronger counterpunch.
Yeah, stronger counterpunch. And then number 3, controlled time of possession. I think that one is self-explanatory within this run game conversation. But when the Falcons are in step with an opponent or even ahead, I feel like oftentimes offensively they flow better. It's when they're having to work from behind that things go from kind of bad to worse, and you're just kind of hoping, and you get into these 4-minute drills where you're having to throw the ball in 2 quarters. In a third and a fourth quarter, all you're doing is throwing the ball, and you can't rely on the run, and it becomes this lopsided thing. So those are my 3 things that I think the Falcons need to clean up. And yes, all three of those things are offensively.
You want to throw it to me?
Yep. Take it away, Terrin. What are your 3 things that you need to see from the Falcons to show that they're righting the ship?
Oh, Tori, I'm so glad you asked.
You're welcome.
I'm going to throw a defensive point in here for my number 1.
Okay.
Defending the run. Because Jeff Ulbrich touched on this Wednesday, the traditional versus non-traditional runs and run windows. He says he has to be safer in non-traditional areas, and I'd like to see that so another Christian McCaffrey slashing doesn't happen against this Falcons defense.
Especially with Jonathan Taylor coming down in the next 2 weeks.
That was a great point you pointed out with him being on that Colts offense, and it's like, you can't have that happen again.
Right.
So even if it improved from one week to another, like Ulbrich mentioned, it still needs to get better.
Yep.
My second one is the offense needs to execute better overall. The amount of times we've heard that word execute.
Oh my gosh,
I
this
feel
week,
I hate that I have said it myself,
I know.
but here we are.
Yeah.
Because it's true. It includes your point when it comes to IDing and counterpunching better, but also everything else, because then that leads to my final and third point that ties the two together and also circles back to the top of the show. We love a callback moment.
We love a full circle moment.
Find consistency across the board.
Yeah.
Just like Bijan Robinson said.
It's like the only consistency is inconsistency.
I love
right
that
now.
phrase.
And
not for them, but just in general.
Right, but that is how I feel like this fan base has felt, and until you can kind of show this fan base that you can play at a consistent level week in and week out in a league that like you have to in order to see your ultimate success flourish, like I don't really know what else there is to say beyond that.
Jake Matthews was asked, how do you get back to regulated emotions? Because right now it's high, low, lows.
Yeah.
Like it's not, there's no in between. You're
Right.
not like, oh, okay, that was fine.
Yeah.
There's been none of that. And he point blank said, you have to win. Winning solves everything.
It does. Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add after that kind of end note?
Honestly, no. Maybe just like a programming note for next week. We are leaving for Germany, which I'm very excited about. Terrin and I need to sit down and like even get together our own like. We'll probably have like 12 hours of time to ourselves that we can go and explore some places in Germany. So if anybody has any like recommendations for places we can go hang out in Berlin, let us know.
Please. And pubs.
Yes, and pubs, all the pubs. So we will probably end up recording this show before we leave for Germany. So we'll keep you updated on kind of all of those things, but that's probably the plan. It'll still run on Friday, but it may just be a little bit more of a Wednesday slate of information that we have to give you.
Yes. It'll still be the Friday 5 on Friday.
Yeah.
And other than that, make sure you're keeping up with all the content on AtlantaFalcons.com in the meantime. There will be a pregame show on Sunday, an hour before kickoff on the Atlanta Falcons YouTube channel. Otherwise, the Falcons Patriots game is scheduled for 1 p.m. at Gillette Stadium on CBS. And I hope everyone has a safe, happy, and scary Halloween weekend.
Happy Halloween!